So I'm going to be really vulnerable and honest with you in this video. This past week, I kind of got set into a spiral, wondering if I should just throw in the towel with homeschooling and just send the kids to public school next year, which probably seems like an overreaction. I've been homeschooling for more than 3 years now. I have 3 kids, 5 and under. You can guess that it's a little difficult managing to homeschool multiple kids who are at such a young age. However, both of my 2 older boys are advanced by a year or more. So my 5-year-old should be going into second grade in the fall, and my 4-year-old first grade in the fall. And so you might be wondering, if they're advanced, then everything's going well. Why would you want to throw in the towel? So 2 reasons, and I do have a solution to both of the reasons. Here's the honest and vulnerable part. I get frustrated to a point where it's not constructive anymore. Showing frustration to an extent can be constructive because obviously the kids need to have some discipline. They need to know right from wrong, like their learning skills, like growing their attention span and learning how to not interrupt and sit still and listen to a teacher for longer and longer periods of time. And nipping them here and there to keep them in line is okay and even good. Teaching them, right? But I cross a line frequently enough. Though I tell myself I'll never do it again, I do it again. And I show frustration that is not constructive, and which makes them not want to do school, which is scary because I want to foster a love of learning in them. I don't want to squash that because they were born with a love of learning. And if I'm going to squash that by being frustrated, I shouldn't be homeschooling them, right? And I've given myself lots of chances to not do that again, yet I do it again. So what I figured out that works is to start my day with scripture and just one chapter, and it doesn't matter what the scripture is. And then we begin our homeschooling day with that same scripture, and I pause and ask them questions throughout reading the chapter. And they're actually very interested in it, and one chapter of, an epistle is good enough, a good enough length for their attention span, and we have a few talking points. I teach them some vocabulary words, and we draw some lessons from it. The one that we did last time was gird up the loins of your mind, which was perfect for what I'm talking about, and it talks in that scripture also about children being obedient, but that wasn't the main point. And so I share with them in a kid-friendly version what I got from that scripture that day. And that really, it doesn't just set the tone, it works miracles. Just like I've said in my previous videos, where back when I was reading scripture at every mealtime and our home just suddenly became more organized and harmonious in ways that I didn't realize that it needed to be. It's just God working in our lives and sorting things out through a level of wisdom that human beings don't have. Faith comes through hearing. We need to read scripture and have scripture in our lives. It sets order without us having to manually do it. And not just order, but it sets things in alignment. It corrects things that we didn't even see needed to be corrected. And so if you're sharing the same experience, and I know you are, okay, homeschooling is by nature going to be frustrating, okay, because progress requires the cooperation of small children, okay, and we have a timeline that we have to meet. It's like if you need to get out the door by a certain time and your kids aren't getting themselves dressed and brushing their teeth, etc., and just getting themselves ready to go out the day, but you can't go and help them do it, you just have to build in the expectation that it's going to take some time, and there are going to be some delays, and there are going to be some peed pants and potty breaks and sudden urgency to get a drink of water, like runny noses, the baby has a blowout. You know what I'm talking about. There are all these crazy interruptions that you can't get frustrated by. You just have to build them into your day and expect them, and expect that sometimes your kids aren't gonna be in the mood to do school and might give some pushback, and sometimes they'll get tired, and you know, it's important to just focus on the fruits of the Spirit rather than focusing on checking off that lesson for the day. You know, are you exemplifying the fruits of the Spirit like gentleness, patience, peace, joy, etc.? Because if you're not exemplifying that, you're not living by the Spirit. It's kind of, the whole homeschooling thing ends up being counterproductive, because at the end of the day,